Survivor 46 is here, and so is On Fire, the only official Survivor podcast, and we have a twist this season. The winner of Survivor 45, Dee Valladares, will be joining us every week.
We're going behind the scenes of the biggest moments, the how and the why things happen, and the strategy and analysis you can only get from someone like me, a Survivor winner.
Listen to On Fire, the official Survivor podcast, wherever you get your podcasts.
Does Monday at the office feel like a storm? Not with Microsoft Copilot. That feeling when Copilot gets everyone up to speed instantly? It's sunny again. When Copilot simplifies complex data so your teams can act, that sun's shining on a beach. And when Copilot uncovers hidden insights, you're on that beach with your people, and you find buried treasure. That's Microsoft Copilot. Learn more at Microsoft.com/AI for all.
Hey, it's Mistress Carrie, reporting for duty from MCHQ for episode 30 of the Mistress Carrie podcast. This episode of the podcast is sponsored by Digital Federal Credit Union, but we all know them way better as DCU. And let's face it, we all cannot wait to put 2020 behind us. And as we prepare for a brand new year, it's a good time to get focused and committed on our financial goals. Not only is it great to go and reflect on your money wins this year and the lessons you learned in 2020, but it's the perfect opportunity to set and commit to your financial goals for 2021, whatever they may be. And DCU's vision is that all members achieve their financial goals collaboratively. They want to be the catalyst and the cheerleader for their members' long-term financial success. So find out what DCU could mean to you and your financial goals by visiting DCU.org. This episode of the podcast is also sponsored by MistressCarrie.com. Yes, that's right. The official website is up and running, and it's filled with great stuff. Obviously, you can find all of the episodes of the Mistress Carrie podcast up there with all of the situation reports and the after-action reports. Plus, every episode of Cocktails in the War Room is up there as well. So you can go back and relive the over 110 episodes that we've already filmed. But there's also a lot of other great stuff, like the events calendar that's filled with all of those awesome streaming concerts that the bands have been doing because we can't go and see them live and in person yet. Plus, it's a great way to go and check out my photo archives, and I'm adding more and more pictures all the time. And the official Mistress Carrie blog is there. But it wouldn't be complete without my official online store, which is filled with t-shirts, sweatshirts, koozies, beanies, pint glasses, coffee mugs, stickers, stuff for your office, and so much more. So while you're listening to this episode, why not go and check out MistressCarrie.com? And real quick, I want to say hello to Jennifer, who's the latest recipient of a Mistress Carrie Backstage Pass on Patreon. You can get yours right now. Get exclusive content, pictures, blogs, and discounted merchandise in the online store at MistressCarrie.com. Okay, episode 30 is all about my good friend, Paul Mecurio. He was born and raised in Rhode Island. He's a stand-up comic. He's had a one-man show on Broadway. He's a comedy writer that's worked on The Daily Show and on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. And he's also the host of his own podcast, The Paul Mecurio Show. And he has interviewed some amazing people. Most recently, Peter Frampton, Louis Gossett Jr., Al Roker. He's even interviewed Paul McCartney. And we talk a lot about it in this episode. And while 2020 has been a hard year for a lot of us, Paul Mecurio's story got even crazier because back in June, he caught COVID-19. And unlike those lucky people that have either avoided the virus or have been asymptomatic, Paul has been battling with serious symptoms and serious issues for the last 6 months. He and I have been friends for years, and he came on my radio show several times. And what's really funny about Paul is that after this friendship we've had for years, we've never actually met in person. Every time it seems that he came into Boston to do a comedy gig, I was always traveling and out of town. And I was never able to take time off to go and see his show on Broadway. But since we both grew up Italian in New England, well, he and I might as well be related. Paul is a really funny guy. He's a clever guy, and I can't wait for you to get to know him. So allow me to introduce you to Paul Mecurio.
Hey, what's up? This is Sully from Godsmack. Strap on those boots, baby, because you are now in the trenches of the war room with the one and only Mistress Carrie right here on the Mistress Carrie podcast.
What's up? This is Joe Rogan, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie.
Her hair so lovely, pretty eyes.
Hey, this is Brent from Shinedown, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie. Hey, Carrie, go put your bra on, girl.
Hey, this is Steven Tyler, and you be listening to the baddest bitch in Boston, Mistress Carrie.
What's up? This is Aaron from Stain, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie.
Hi, everybody. This is Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters, and you're listening to the one, the only Mistress Carrie.
Hey, this is David from the band Disturbed, and you're listening to the baddest bitch in Boston, Mistress Carrie.
This is Marilyn Manson, and you're listening to the baddest bitch in Boston, Mistress Carrie.
Hi, this is Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. You're listening to Mistress Carrie.
This is Dennis Leary. You are listening to my favorite, Mistress Carrie.
Hey, this is Corey from Stone Sour, and you're listening to, you have the privilege of listening to Mistress Carrie. Oh, God. Oh, yeah.
You should see that I'm recording you, Paul Mecurio.
It says recording.
So that means I'm recording.
You're recording. We got it.
Got it. It's working. How are you?
I'm good. I get to see you.
You get to see me, and I don't get to see you.
Whenever we do these, we're always on the phone with each other, and I don't get to see you. And you got really cool glasses on. You got these.
Thank you.
Like kind of hip, and then your hair is purpley, and it's like,
yeah, you know,
which is my high school color.
Welcome to MCHQ, my new studio.
Yeah, nice. It's really looks really cool. Hey, look, do you have anybody come into your? Well, you can't because of COVID, right?
I've had a couple people come in, and we've been able to socially distance and kind of record in here. But for the most part, everybody that I talk to, right now anyway, until the virus is under control, I talk to them like this.
Right. Hey, why not? You know, I mean, it's, you know, the camera, you look great too. You got the camera positioned well. You look good.
Well, it's all that stuff on my, my porno channel in my part-time. If this podcast thing doesn't work out for me, now that my radio career is ended, then, I got to have the OnlyFans or something ready to go.
Right. Part-time. Come on. Who's kidding who? Come on. It's like you can't pull you away from that camera with the whole with the dildos and everything. Wait a minute.
It's just all dildos all the time around here. Since
that is a gigantic cup of coffee, by the way. That is a huge, massive mug.
Paul, you and I have known each other long enough. You are very well aware that I am fueled by hate and caffeine. That's what I'm fueled by.
That's why we get along so well.
That's right. Well, it's one of the many reasons. And what's funny is that, like you said, every other time we talk, it's usually on the phone.
Yeah.
You and I have been talking. You were on my radio show so many times.
Yeah.
You did my original podcast at WAAF, and you and I have literally never met in person.
I know, and you've done my podcast.
Yeah.
We have a great picture of you with your little pug. It's a pug, right?
Yeah.
And that you shot, I think, in your studio. I know, but it's like, I feel like, you meet some people, you feel like you've known them all your life, and that's how it felt like when we first talked. Now, I was a fan of yours from AAF, growing up in Rhode Island and being in New England a lot of my life. So I kind of knew you. You always had that sexy voice, and I always wondered what you looked like and everything. And then I
sound like you've been gargling glass since puberty.
Exactly.
When you have a voice like this, there's not much. Like, I'm never going to be the voice of a Disney princess. You're very limited in what you can do, and there's certain things where my voice sounds really cool. Like talking about monster trucks. My voice is perfect for shit like that.
Yeah.
When it comes to reading a romance novel or being the voice of a Disney princess or something, it just doesn't work.
No, I think you're right. I mean, I love your voice, but I think like if you were in a Disney movie, you would be like sassy woman behind the bakery counter when the princess comes in.
What do you want?
Yeah, so you got, the eclairs are good, they're fresh, just take them. Here's an extra one. It's St. Patrick's Day, like that kind of thing.
Or I'd be Ursula the Sea Witch. Like, it's one of those.
No, not a sea witch.
Or one of the stepsisters, or the evil, witch, or the monster.
Or you maybe like the assholey substitute teacher that just drops the hammer on everybody. Like it's the reverse. Like, that we write the script that think the kids are going to walk all over the teacher, and then the teacher walks all over the kids. And they're like, we just want our old Mrs. McGillicuddy back. She's really nice. I'll give you a nice.
Shut up.
Exactly. All right. Math. It doesn't matter. You got a calculator on your phone? Go.
2 + 2. Figure it out.
I'm not going to baby you. That's the problem. And then you go on a rant for a half hour, and then the kids just leave.
Yeah.
Hang on, I got this thing.
Yeah, you got to get the phone. It's a great thing about podcasts. It's just whatever. Could be Stephen Colbert. Could be Paul McCartney. We just don't know with you, Paul. Could be anybody. You don't know who's calling.
It was George Harrison calling from the dead. calling from the other side.
There's so much I want to catch up with you on because so much has happened. Like, now, you and I have kept in touch, obviously, this year, but we haven't talked officially, like in months and months and months. So, obviously, back in February, WAF's frequency got sold and the station went off the air, which was the biggest surprise. I mean, not only just to me, but I think to anybody that ever grew up listening, like you said, growing up listening to WAF. Yeah,
that's been the station in New England forever, like the station. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, this was supposed to be our 50-year anniversary this year on the air. And now we're living in a post-WAF world, and the joke has gone around the internet with memes 1,000 times that WAF getting sold to a Christian rock station is what triggered the apocalypse and the clusterfuck that we know as 2020.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
This is what happens.
Exactly. Those overly Christian people ruin everything.
Everything. We didn't get locusts, but we got murder hornets. We found out about UFOs. There's a global pandemic. Tom Brady went to Tampa. I mean,
it's a mess.
It's a fucking disaster.
Oh, you had to mention Tom Brady. I kind of forgot about that for 5 minutes.
And Gronk. And I mean, how many other awful things have happened this year?
Oh my God, the Red Sox really sucked bad.
It just all goes back to WAF going off the air. Seriously.
You didn't see it coming? You as an insider?
No.
Really?
I mean, I've talked about it a few times, so I apologize to anybody that's listening that's heard the story before. But, back in August of 2019, our unbelievable morning show, the Hillman Morning Show, kind of split into two pieces, and Greg Hill started a new morning show on our sports station, speaking of the Red Sox, and now it's called the Greg Hill Show.
Yeah, yeah.
And when that happened in radio, the rule has always been, so goes the morning show, so goes the station. And so people were like, oh, AAF's in trouble. It's losing its legacy morning show. But on the back end of it, they were saying, look, we need to take this as an opportunity. We're losing the massive payroll. It was a legacy show, but they didn't play music, and we're a rock station, so we have the opportunity now to infuse music back in our morning show. Mm-hmm. We're going to strip the radio station down, and we're going to rebuild it as this balls-out, take chances, break new bands, rock station, and we're just going to really be super focused on the music, and we're just going to go back to what made us great. Mm-hmm. And that was the marching orders. So between when Greg Hill left and went to the sports station and we went off the air, me as the assistant program director, it was part of my marching orders to rebrand the radio station, bring it completely back around music focused. We had a bunch of plans for this whole year celebrating our 50th anniversary and celebrating all the bands we had broken and the amazing music that had come out in the last 50 years. And we were marching towards that. Now, we knew we were going to lose advertising revenue because we lost our morning show.
Right.
But we also were completely downsizing the expenses. So we were like, you know what? We're going to be lean and mean. We know that the audience is going to love what we're doing. And the equation of what the station costs versus what it's making, we think that for every dollar spent, the return is going to be really good.
Right.
So we're not going to make the most money in the company bottom line, but the return on investment we thought was going to be really good. Mm-hmm. And so we were supposed to launch the, quote, new and improved WAF, the relaunch, on March 2nd. And the last day we were on the air was February 21st. So we never even had a chance to launch what would have been, which is really shitty for me because I spent months with my boss, Joe Calgaro, and our GM, Mark Hannon, like brainstorming this whole thing and working with the marketing department and really putting this amazing plan together to just be live, local, rebellious, loud. Just it was going to be great. And it's that thing where it's like, we never really got to see what could have been, and that's what's really sad.
Did they actually sell the station, or it's the same people and they just turned over the format?
No, it's weird. They sold the actual signal, 107.3 FM, to the Christian people. The company kept WAF as a set of call letters registered with the FCC, and they maintained the intellectual property, which means the actual brand of it. Mm-hmm. They kept, but they're not doing anything really with it. I mean, WAF exists as a music stream station only. There's no DJs. There's no anything on it. You can listen to it at WAF.com or on the radio.com app. Mm-hmm. The website, the social media pages are all still there, but all the personality has been stripped out of it, and it's not broadcasting except on a couple HD2 channels in Boston. But
so what's the hold? Is iHeart the holding company that owns the Christian? Entercom. So
Entercom owns and owned WAF. K-Love is the Christian broadcasting company that bought the signal.
Oh, okay. So they're a separate company from Entercom.
Yeah. So they bought just the broadcast signal, and K-Love has done this before. They're the ones that took BRU off the air. They're the ones that took CCC and Hartford off the air. They buy the signals and put these rock stations out of business. And K-Love is a nonprofit company because it's Christian-based. Because it's religious, I don't think they pay taxes on anything. So it's
of course not. Yeah.
So they're not beholden to the same kind of ratings pressures because they're not operating as a commercial entity. They're a nonprofit.
Right.
So it's like, people like the ratings must suck, and it's like they don't care.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. They're using the signal as a megaphone for their message.
Yeah, which is...
But they're not worried about, day part ratings and advertising revenue stuff the way that a commercial station would.
Well, I'm surprised that, having done in my previous life mergers and acquisitions, I'm surprised that the people at your level or your bosses on the corporate side didn't know that this acquisition was happening, because that takes a long time to do an acquisition of any kind. You have to do due diligence. You have to look at legal documents. You have to look at financials. So it's not like somebody calls up and go, hey, we're creepy Christian rock people, and John Tesh is really hankering to get on another station. What the fuck is up with that guy? Jesus Christ. If I have to hear him give me one more stupid fucking fact about did you know that most toothpaste is made in Milwaukee? Fuck you. Fuck. Why does he still... Can't he just fuck, what's her name? Connie, fuck, whatever her name is, and move on? Why is he a friend of yours? I hope not. I don't even, I can't.
I don't think John Tesh and I are running in the same circles, Paul.
I swear to God, when you, every time I turn the radio on, and I like to listen to radio in the car, I hear, in 1986, they made pencils for 6 people. And then he goes to some shit ass music song, whatever. All right, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
That guy just drives me. I can't stand it.
I've known you long enough to know that sometimes something just chafes your ass.
That and Kelly Clarkson. Tangent. I'm going to go to as soon as this COVID thing is over, because we tape in the same city in the Late Show, and I'm going to go take a dump on her set. I cannot stand that woman.
Do you know her?
No, she's just fake. No, she's just that fakey, bubbly, which is what you have to have for daytime TV, except if you're Ellen, then you can just be a complete bitch and just pretend like you're nice. What a douche. What a dude. Just a bunch of You know what I mean? It's like
Your New England comes out, and I fucking love it.
Well, it's like, like when I go on the road, right? I do radio, right? And there's what you will know, and most people may not know, it's called soccer mom stations, which are those morning stations where you got to be super clean and talk about your.
Hey, good morning.
Yeah, exactly. And then you go down the hall and there's like a stripper and beer show, which is more my take.
Yeah, which is what I used to do.
Right, exactly. And so there's that whole vibe in daytime television. I don't know. I just think they play down to the viewers. Like you don't have to be this super saccharine show. That's just all they do is they're fake happy and they give shit away. They're just buying viewers. They're just getting people, and they tell them like, okay, we're going to give you a really shitty fucking can opener, like a $3 one from True Value, and you're going to go fucking crazy for it. Like, you get
a car, and you get a car, and you get a car.
Yeah, and I just want to take a big steaming dump after eating about 5 bowls of chili and just walk off the set. Do it live, though, so they can't edit it out,
Do you think that it's their mission to be that way? And the only reason I say this is because I've been locked in the house for the last 9+ months. Or do you think that they are that way because the listeners are looking for a happy, non-confrontational alternative so they can turn the TV on and they know that they're not going to be challenged. They know that they're not going to hear bad news. They know that they can just be happy and kind of escape the shitty world for a little while, because they wouldn't be that way if they didn't get ratings and they didn't make money.
Right. I think it's being programmed like television was programmed in the 50s. And so I think it's a combination. It's a part of the latter, but I also think it's playing down to the viewer, and it's not acknowledging that this is a different generation of people than your mom and my mom. Like, first of all, my mom's like 93 and running her business, and she never watched TV because she's this fucking psycho Italian that won't fuck. Oh, by the way, she lost her fucking hearing aid again.
Again?
Again. So she bought one, $675, lost that one. They give you one replacement. She lost that one. I go to pick her up to take her. Yeah, you laugh. Fuck you.
I laugh because every time I talk to you, we talk about your mom's hearing aid. Literally
because it's
time.
always a I don't like to repeat myself on people's shows, but call my mother and tell her to get her shit together, and I won't fucking talk about it. So then I go to
yeah, but she wouldn't be able to hear me because she can't find her hearing aid.
That's true. It'd just be a lot of. I'm not even kidding you. So I go last Monday, 4 or 5 days ago, to take her to get another hearing aid, and this is what I walk into. She's running around the house, like, and looking half homeless. I can't find it. I can't find it. I can't find my replacement hearing aid. She couldn't find the third fucking replacement which was her old one that she bought over the counter at BJ's. I'm not kidding you. She bought it at BJ's because it's like an amplifier. So then we had to find that, which was under a stack of papers on a dining room table, then take her. So anyway, I don't know why I brought her up. So what they do is they program it thinking, okay, these moms are home with their kids and the TV's on and they just need to escape and they don't want to be whatever and this and that. And the modern day mother, I dare say, is a little bit more multidimensional and more sophisticated.
The modern day mother is looking for a way to drink wine.
Yeah, exactly.
Right now.
Right, exactly. It's like she's meeting her OxyContin dealer behind the fucking house. Like,
she's locked in the house with kids that are virtually learning right now.
Right. And so they think that is, and then frankly, I worked on a show where they replaced the daytime host with somebody who was African American because the demo showed that a lot of African-American people and women are watching daytime television. So they're just going where the numbers are taking them. But like, I just think that they don't, you don't need to play down to these people. Like, okay, you can have some happy segments or whatever, like.
People need that. I mean, right now, I know I seek out news that doesn't make me want to just bury myself in a hole in the backyard because the world is so fucking depressing right now.
It is, and I got COVID, right? So So like whenever I see these stories, I stopped watching them of people like with really bad problems from COVID because it starts to freak me out. Like I just got MRIs on my 2 elbows because I got joint issues, inflamed joints from COVID. Like I didn't have this problem.
Do you mind, like, you're one of the people, so to backtrack a little bit. So obviously everything has happened this year. You know, it's an election year, so everything's politicized. There's a global pandemic, everything that's gone on. You are one of the people of which there are many, by the way, that I know that don't fit into they were really sick with pre-existing conditions. They're 1,000 years old. You're one of the examples that I give to people when they say either COVID's not real, it's not that dangerous. I'm like, I know a lot of people that have really struggled with it. So do you mind if we backtrack to the point where, so when did you realize you were sick, or when did you find out because you got tested, or did you go and get tested because you didn't feel good?
No, because I fucking worked in Florida with those fucking assholes. And when I'm done here, I'm getting a chainsaw and cutting that fucking state away from the country. Because I had a show. I had a bunch of shows at a big club down there, the Improv in Palm Beach. And
when was this?
June. Middle end of June. And as it's getting closer to my gig, I'm seeing these stories like on reputable sites, not QAnon conspiracy fucking Facebook pages, but like, CNN and whatever, saying it's surging in Florida because Ron DeSantis is the governor. And if you don't, and I don't give a shit who's ever listening. I don't care if you're conservative and you have right. I don't give a shit about that. This is just like, don't be an asshole, wear a mask, period, end of story. And by the way, if you're listening, you're going to wear a mask. You're not a little bit pregnant, like, don't wear the mask on your fucking chin. Okay, nothing's coming out of your chin. Nothing's coming out of your chin. Do you understand? So, and don't go on a cruise, for Christ's sake. I don't get these people that the cruise is like, that's where it started, and they're going on the cruise again, and I don't even get the cruise in the first place. Like, you're $600 to live in a closet for a week and eat Golden Corral quality buffet. What the fuck is going on with people? Like, you don't go on. The only reason you go on a cruise is to kill your husband. That's the only reason.
Or your wife, hasn't that
happened? Your wife,
too?
Her earring dropped and she fell overboard. You know what I mean?
We all grew up in the Love Boat generation where it looked so romantic, and you're going to find love and be out on the Lido deck at sunset.
Right. They leave the part out where you get food poisoning because the lasagna's bad, and so we call the club. My agent and I were like, this is like looking bad down there. No. And this was like they convinced people. And I'm picking people out like Florida and probably most people that, are following Trump and DeSantis, who the governor just wants to be up Trump's ass to get an appointment in his next administration, which isn't going to happen. And so they had convinced people down there, fuck it, don't wear masks. So I go down there and the club had assured us that they had it covered. And they were basically social distancing people in the club, but they weren't making people wear masks at the table for an hour and a half in a show in a confined space.
And they're laughing.
And they're laughing. Like, so it's like it's like a problem at a bar or a restaurant where they've been warning people not to go, only to like the 50th power because like shit's coming out of your mouth at 100 miles an hour. And I went down there and I was wearing my masks, and we had no one could use my microphone. They had a dedicated microphone for me. They had to clean it after every performance. Only some people could come in the green room. Everybody had that mask around me. But, but on stage, I had to take my mask off, and I'm in that environment. And at the hotel where I was staying, same thing. Nobody's wearing masks, like, except for the staff. Because if you walked around down there, you would never know. So they had convinced themselves. I had a couple of people come to me and say, oh, take your mask off. It's a hoax at the club. Like, this thing's a hoax. And not like the crazy cat lady with the fucking pilly sweater, like that looking like a high-end, pretty wealthy Palm Beach like person coming up to me, and I'm like, this is fucking horseshit. And so, and I go to the gym, and I try to go to the gym at the hotel. I go there. There's some woman's got like, it's like I think it was like the older sisters. There's 3 little kids, 8, 10, and 11, and they're running around all the machines, touching everything, no mask, no nothing. And I call I call the manager. I go, this is crazy. You're going to get people, well, they're not required to wear masks. I go, what do you think? You put a sticker on the floor that says every 6 feet and everything's fucking fine, you idiot? Like, you know, and then when they seated people at the table at the club, the people they didn't know each other's history, right? So like they had an office party one night come out, like 12 people at a table. Well, all of those people were like shoulder to shoulder with no masks. And you don't know where those other 11 people, like, you know, with your husband or your kids, right? You know where you've been. It was a complete joke, And then the club owner, like, after calling me, oh, we're so sorry. Every night we had somebody come in and clean stem. I go to OTB and spend the money there. You're wasting your money. What do you mean? I go, within 15 minutes of opening your door, you've contaminated the whole place because you're not making people wear masks. And I came home on a Sunday. And that Monday I had a little bit of cough, and and on that Tuesday I got tested, and then I had it, and I got it there, and that's how it started.
So what do you say to the person listening to this that says you made the decision to go down there, even though you're in New York where it had been really bad earlier, and you should have canceled the date and you shouldn't have gone down there?
I wanted to cancel the date, but there would have been retribution from the club if I did.
Gotcha.
They would not have booked me in their other clubs.
Gotcha.
Because that's the game that they've played. This is a club that, you know, I started to work a different competing club in a city that they have another club in, and they kind of blackballed me on that. So that was a conversation that was had several times. And because of that, and the fact that, you know, no work was coming in and the late show kind of was stopped and everything else, it's like, well, I got to get some money coming in. And they assured me that they had their shit covered. It seemed like the thing to do. So would I do it again? No, but I don't think my decision process would be any different. If I had known that the club were going to be such dickheads about it, I definitely wouldn't have gone, because it's not like the flu. It's not. It's bullshit. When people say that, I mean, when Trump came out and said I got it and it was a blessing in disguise, I got so mad. I wrote a commentary. I did it on CBS Sunday Morning. I'll text it to you, the link.
I watched it.
Oh, okay. And I got fucking rip shit. I wrote that at 4:30 in the morning. It's like, this guy's going to kill people. I mean, I started out, I didn't have a big fever or anything. I had a cough, this and that. Lost my sense of taste, lost my sense of smell.
Yeah, so go through your timeline with me, because there are a lot of people that I know that don't know anybody that's had it, that don't know anybody that's died. And I understand how it can look if you live in a place that's way more spread out than New York City or, you know, a comedy club in Palm Beach.
Right.
Where if you're not personally affected, and that's the human experience, right? That unless we see things for ourselves, it makes it extremely hard for us to put ourselves in that position. And 2020 is requiring a lot more empathy than I think we've all been required to have in a really long time. So your experience with this, I think, is really important. And one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you, because you might be the first person that people hear that have had it that didn't have a pre-existing condition, that you weren't already, you know, ill with something else, and you're not old. And so I really want to be able to show people the track of what happened. So you go down there in June, you come home the next day, you got a little bit of a cough.
Right.
You go get tested, you're positive, and then take me through the timeline of your symptoms. Like, when did you lose your sense of taste and smell?
Well, I've always, you know, it was probably like, I didn't have a fever or anything. And you're right. Like I'm in pretty good shape. Like I work out, I got a hot body, as you know. And, what are you laughing at?
Nothing.
Don't you laugh at me. You know, I just was really nervous about how sort of, like I said, so like how bad they were at like making sure that this thing was done right and the masks and everything else. I got the test, and then I started to feel tired after I got tested, and then a few days later I found out I had it, and then I was really, really tired, and I would have some headaches that I normally wouldn't have, and then I would be no sense of taste or smell, which really sucked. Like,
when you're Italian, especially, you and I have talked about this so many times. It's like You lived through that.
I'm telling you, you could take a dish towel, put some spaghetti sauce on it and bake it, put some cheese on it, hand it to me and tell me it's a chicken cutlet. I'd eat it and be like, yeah, that's a good chicken cutlet. Like it's fucking, no, you don't know. And I can't drink soda anymore. It all tastes horrible to me, except for root beer, Coke, Diet Coke. I went to a restaurant, I ordered Diet Coke. You know, when restaurants that use the gun, sometimes that stuff is flat and gross.
Yeah.
So I sent it back. I thought it was that. And I go home and 2 days later, I have a Diet Coke out of a can, same taste. I'm like, it wasn't the gun at the restaurant. It was me. So it tastes, I don't even know. It tastes like ass and grated cheese. That's what it tastes like. Although I don't know exactly what ass tastes like, except for that one time I went to a party. And no, I can't. Seriously. So that, and then orange juice I can drink, but it's very sour to me, more sour than it normally would be. Apple juice I'm okay with. In the middle of dinner last night, I suddenly stopped tasting it. I had a steak and cheese sandwich 2 days ago. A lot of onions on it.
So you're still dealing with, like, you got COVID in June. It's now December, and you are still having taste and smell issues.
Yes. Yeah. And, and look, I'm already a guy with bad taste. I put a lot of Jovan musk oil on as it is. I'm Italian. So now I load up. I'm like, yeah, baby. And so...
and everybody around you is like, I'm dying.
I'm dying. This kid from the north end of Providence, he really is a wop. And so I basically... and then I would get really hungry. Like I would eat. This was like right in the first few weeks. And then an hour later, it felt like I had a hole in my stomach. And I was going to bed at night, and I'd wake up with these really bad headaches. And I figured out it was because... during the night, my body was just getting ravaged by this thing and consuming the food and the fuel. And so I had to, just before I would go to bed, I'd have to eat something like a bowl of cereal or some toast or peanut butter and jelly. Like I was eating a lot of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for some reason. I had a lot of carbs, craving carbs. And so then, and then I get really tired. Like I do nothing. Like I go like outside for a walk. I move some stuff around in the garage or whatever, I kill a hobo, and then, and then I get really tired from like something that would never make me that tired and tired for the rest of the day. And so like that just continued. And I thought, okay, well, I'll get over the tired. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like I was so tired all the time.
How many weeks in is this now?
Oh, this is a month or two in, and I basically, I was having some like fluttering in my heart, which concerned me because they say, this, the thing that they've been finding out with this is that the body is this pretty amazing thing, that it's a virus and then it attacks the virus. But when it attacks the virus, it attacks other things in the body. Like it can't differentiate, right? Like, oh, I'm going to go after the virus, but not after the joints or these major organs. So inflammation is a byproduct of it. And so I went and I got a stress test and everything on my heart because I was worried about that. And everybody on my father's side dies of heart attacks. And I'm like, okay, well, that came out okay. And by the way, you ever do a stress test? Those are like, they have you going.
Life is a fucking stress
exactly.
test. Are you kidding me? This year, 2020, is my goddamn stress test.
I know, exactly.
And I usually have low blood pressure. When I get really stressed out, like when I was going through my divorce, my blood pressure got down to like, I think the lowest it got, it was like 50 something over 40 or 30 something. Like
really?
My blood pressure lowers the more stressed out I get, which is really weird.
Yeah.
But it got to the point where they almost wanted to put me on medication because my blood pressure was so low.
My wife has low blood pressure. She has AFib, and she takes a medication for it. Yeah. But for the AFib.
My heart is fine, and it's a family thing. My sister's that way. My mom is that way.
It's so weird that you think it would go the other way.
I know. And we all have low blood pressure. And it also means that my temperature is always a little low, too. So, like, the average American is at 98.6 or whatever. Mine is like 97 all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just weird that I run low like that. So
especially being an Italian and everything,
right?
You'd think like I would just like you'd think you'd be like taking out a chainsaw and going to town and going crazy.
No, it's really. I mean, I've had so many nurses and whatever. You know, you go and you get your your blood, and they go, "Do you have any stress in your life at all?" And I'm like, "Bitch, please." Are you kidding me right now? Especially this year.
Yeah, I know.
And you know, it's funny the way that everybody processes stress differently, which I think everyone in 2020 is learning how they process stress.
Yep.
And just how your body, which I think goes back to what we're talking about. Everybody's body deals with things differently. COVID is something where Paul Mecurio is dealing with COVID differently than someone else that gets it. And the fact that it doesn't hit everybody the same feeds into that theory that it's fake.
Well, that, and if you see people, you know, if you saw me, you'd be like, early on, if you saw me, people say I looked really tired and gaunt. But if you saw me, you'd be like, oh, this guy doesn't look like he had COVID or he's dealing with any symptoms from it. And so you start to buy into the bullshit that it's either a hoax or it's no worse than the flu. And then people start saying, oh, like X number of people die of a flu every year. But it's like, I don't know what's going to happen to me next week. Can you say that about the flu? Can you get the flu and then go, in 5 years, I could develop a heart condition from it? No. I don't know what's going to happen with me with this. That's the thing. And I'm seeing probably one of the best, if not the COVID specialist in New York, who was on the front lines in the spring. She was just on 60 Minutes. And then they asked her, and basically it was the same conversation that I had in the office with her. It's like, we don't know. We don't know. You'll go through things. So I started, like 2 months in, I started to get shooting pains throughout my body, just random shooting pains. And she'd be like, oh yeah, people describe that as like getting a shock, like in an outlet. Yeah. Tired all the time. Can't taste the smell. Random headaches. Sometimes I forget things that I normally wouldn't forget. Yes. And they're all like, yes. You like every Wednesday, 2 frogs come out of my ass. Yep. We've heard that. We've had that problem. Yeah.
Did you ever get the fever?
I never got a fever. But then, and this is the thing that's been one of the biggest problems, is my left elbow just started to hurt like a motherfucker, like really bad. Like I couldn't bend it. And my left ring finger on my left hand can't really bend it that well all of a sudden. And then on my right middle finger.
That's the weight of the wedding ring. That's the weight of death right there. That's not COVID. That's being married.
Exactly. I never thought of that. That's the indicator of just how shitty my marriage is. You know, I
don't mean to make light of it.
No, you got to. You can. If there's one finger I didn't want to have to be able to bend, it'd be my middle finger. It'd be easier for me.
I'm using, like, look at my finger. I can't do anything with it.
I'm using it all the time anyway. And then I'm like, you know, I started to kind of do some stuff around the house, like little projects. And I thought, okay, well, maybe I just used a hammer, but it's my left hand, my left arm. My right one started to feel funky. I go see a hand specialist. He goes, he's touching my elbow. He goes, you got tendonitis. I go, what do you mean? He goes, yeah, you know, I go, what is tendonitis? He goes, tennis elbow. I'm like, well, what is tennis elbow? He goes, it's from overuse. I go, I'm right-handed. I go, I do everything right-handed. I masturbate right-handed. I masturbate dogs right-handed. I do everything right-handed. And he goes, I go, what do you want to do? He goes, here's a cortisone shot. He gives me a cortisone shot. I go, what happens if that doesn't work? He goes, cortisone shot again. He goes, then what? He goes, it goes cortisone, physical therapy, surgery. I'm like, okay, this guy's not my guy. Because he wouldn't listen to me. I said, it's from COVID. This never happened to me before. So this continued to be, and then in my right elbow, to the point where, you know, I can't pick up a coffee cup. Like if I put the phone to my ear with my left arm and I'm holding it there for like 10 minutes, it's super stiff. I can't, and I'm like, hey, I can't live like this. I reached down to pull the blankets over me the other night with my left hand, and I had pain in my arm just from pulling blankets over me. It's like, I'm not going to live like this. So I've seen 8 different doctors. I just got an MRI. They're showing some inflammation, the tendons where they attach to the bone. They don't know why. They think, well, maybe it was always there and the COVID just got inflamed because of the virus fighting the body fighting the virus. And now I just started physical therapy yesterday for my 2 elbows from doing nothing to cause the pain. And so, you know, now what is the, I mean, I'm 6 months in on this. Like, I'm not 100%. I'm still tired, you know, I still can't taste 100%. Now, just because I didn't end up on a ventilator and my life almost ended doesn't mean that it's any less traumatic or serious, and people should take it any less seriously. That's why, you know, people making a decision in Florida that they weren't going to wear a mask out of their right or because of politics put my life in danger, literally in danger, literally in danger. And my son got it because of it. So some asshole out down there, and I mean it, you know, I don't give a shit about your politics, but when you're making the decision not to wear a mask, if you do something that want to put your own life at risk, I'm all for it, man. Go for it. Do it. You want to walk in front of traffic and not kill anybody except yourself? Do it. But you do have an obligation morally and ethically, not to get on a high horse, to not make other people possibly die because of a fucking mask. That's bullshit. Now, some people listening may not like that. That's your problem. You know, I'm sorry. But like, I don't want, again, like that's the thing where you can't look at somebody and go, oh, it didn't hurt him that bad. I'll get it. It's not a big deal. Like, you can't think like that.
Well, that's the thing. That's one of the issues. You know, you and I work in the entertainment business. You work marketing, promotion, all of that stuff. I think one of the mistakes is the only metric that gets measured for COVID that we see on TV all the time is positive cases and death. They're starting to show hospitalizations now because we have gotten to the point where we're maxing out the ability to admit anybody into the hospital for anything, COVID or non-COVID related. So they're monitoring hospitalizations. But what the problem and the hurdle of getting over, and I have, again, when you have friends that are small business owners and they're watching their life's work go down the drain, and you've got people that can't pay their mortgages. I mean, look at me. You know, I think if COVID didn't happen when AAF went off the air towards the end of February, I think had COVID not happened, I would have ended up back on the radio someplace else, I think. I was going to job interviews at the end of February and early March. I would benefit greatly, and my entire industry as a music industry and a broadcast industry would benefit greatly if we could all go back to work. Right? Nobody wants anybody to go back to work more than somebody that works in the entertainment business right now.
Yeah.
So you look at it and you go, okay, I understand if you, like, I know a lot of people that got it completely asymptomatic. They only got tested because they got exposed. And so they wanted to go on a trip or something, and then they find out that they got it and they were completely asymptomatic. They spend a couple weeks at home and they're like, this is not a fucking big deal.
Right.
But what we're not tracking is people like you that got it and all these months later are still dealing with it. And a couple weeks ago, I tweeted out, this is one of the only things that I think would make people take COVID seriously, is the vascular stuff and the inflammation stuff that you're talking about that for you has centralized in your elbows. One of the long-term side effects that they are starting to track now is people getting COVID, being basically asymptomatic or whatever, and then all of a sudden 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, a year later, their dick stops working. When guys find out that they got COVID and they didn't get sick and they were fine, and a year later their dick stops working and they find out it was because of COVID, how seriously is the world going to take it then when all of a sudden your vascular system's inflamed and you can't get a hard on?
Right.
How serious? If they were on CNN, if Dr. Sanjay Gupta was on TV talking about how you could get COVID and never get a hard on again.
Right.
Every person in Florida would have been wearing 3 masks.
Exactly. And based on that, I've had COVID for the last 15 years, apparently.
No, but seriously.
No, it is. It is.
Like, why aren't you on Fox News going, there's nothing Americans love more than fucking bacon, beer, and literally fucking.
Yeah. Exactly.
And if you get COVID, you won't taste the beer, you
Right.
won't taste the bacon, and you
Right.
can't fuck anybody.
Right.
People
Right.
wouldn't leave the house.
Right. And then the leaders are hypocrites. And I'm not, and this isn't a rant against Republicans, but
it's all of them.
Like, you know what I mean? Like Chris Christie was going around saying, don't wear masks. This is bullshit. Rudy Giuliani. Right? And the minute they get it, what do? Someone give me Remdesivir. Give me the stuff that no one else can get. They go in the hospital. If you're such a big fucking swinging dick and you don't think masks are a big deal, that means by definition, you don't think this thing is a big deal. When you get it, why don't you just keep walking around with no masks and say it's not a big deal?
In the house
Nobody
for 2
wants
weeks,
to
no
walk
big
the
deal.
walk. Nobody wants to walk the walk.
Nancy Pelosi goes and gets her hair done after
Right.
telling everybody
Right.
how many Democratic
Yep.
leaders, because I want to make sure we're taking shots on both
Yeah,
sides
absolutely.
of the fence here.
Yeah.
You know, there's the Democratic governors and
Yeah, they go and have
Congress
parties, Cuomo. Absolutely. They're all hypocrites.
Yeah.
They're all hypocrites.
But
And
we
so-
all don't get picked up on the South Lawn and brought to Walter Reed when we get COVID.
Right,
So
right.
so for the most powerful man on the planet to get it, he's getting top-notch care and experimental drugs and
Yeah.
all of the stuff that you and I aren't going to get if we just
Yeah.
go to the ER because we test positive for COVID.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I think across the board, I'm going after both sides of the aisle. It's not, and I'm not even. It's not my agenda to be political with this. It just happens to have been made political, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend that it hasn't, because that's going to be disingenuous. But like on both sides of it, Republican or Democrat, I don't give a shit. They're all a lot of them have been a bunch of assholes and hypocrites and saying one thing and doing another. This one guy, wasn't there some mayor, Democratic mayor, was literally texting from a vacation in Mexico saying to people
Telling
to
people not to leave the house.
That was how do you think? And then they go, it was a lapse in judgment. They do that bullshit PR line. And it's like,
How
fuck
did he
you.
get back in the country?
Exactly.
The
Yeah.
rest of us can't just fucking leave whenever
Yeah.
we want. They should have fucking
Yeah.
left him in Mexico
Yeah,
and been
yeah.
like, sorry, bro, now you can't come home. And because
Exactly.
you're not home, you
Exactly.
can't work. And now you don't get a paycheck like every person that works as a bartender, that
Right.
every person that works in a restaurant, every fucking band that can't tour, every roadie,
Yeah.
everybody. No, you know what? You're stuck in Mexico on your own fucking dime and you don't get a paycheck
Yeah.
until you get home.
Stay there
Fuck
and make
you.
stay there and make piñatas the rest of your life, okay? Because that's what, and so I just think that there's going to be a bunch of people that don't want to take it seriously for whatever reason, and I don't know what you're going to do about it. But I'm just telling people, I'm not 100%, and I think given that I'm healthy coming into this, I should be. If this thing weren't such a big deal, I should be clear of this thing within a few weeks. And it's 6 months later, and I'm just starting physical therapy. And it sounds like whatever, but this is taking up a big part of my life. Okay,
Well, not only that, imagine if you didn't have health insurance.
Oh,
what it
listen.
would cost.
Well, some of this I had to pay out of pocket. Like this COVID specialist that I'm seeing, which kind of pissed me off, and I'm actually thinking about talking to her. It's she won't take insurance, so I have to pay her out of pocket, and it's not cheap. And I'm like, this is an opportunity in your life to literally give something back to mankind. Don't charge so much or take people's insurance, because what you're doing is you're basically saying only the really well off or fairly well off can get your expertise, and everybody else go fuck yourself.
Why won't she take insurance? That doesn't make any sense at all.
Because it's a money play. It's a money grab on some level. She was part of a team that was on the front lines of COVID, whatever. And, in March and April and May, when New York was a cluster, that was weird. We had tents in Central Park, and the city was shut down, and it's it's getting that way again. It's uncomfortably quiet.
Refrigerator truck morgues parked on the side of the road. It's
you don't you don't hear any I bought a jackhammer, and every Sunday I just go jackhammer at 8 a.m. so I could feel like I'm living in New York again. It's ridiculous.
And you know what's crazy is that we're sitting here talking about the doctor, but in order for her to get to the level of being the specialist that she is, she probably spent $250,000 going to college, and she's probably still paying the loans off.
No, I get it. You know what I mean?
So it's you got to look at both sides of everything.
I totally get it. I'm not saying she's got to give it away for free, but maybe she cut you. I didn't even get a lollipop when I went. I mean, at least you get a lollipop. Remember, you get a lollipop when you So the other thing about New York that I did see that like tells me things are coming back is, you're supposed to keep the 6 feet, and then I see two cab drivers, a cab driver and a guy, they're fighting over a spot. And they get out, and then it starts with, fuck you. And they both get out and they start yelling at each other. And then it turns into like a fight, and they start coming at each other, and they start fist fight. But then one of them realized, oh, it's COVID. I need 6 feet of distance. So he like backed up, but then he kept swinging his hands, and he'd run close, then he'd back up, and then he'd swing his hands. And I'm like, this is awesome. This is like,
my God.
this is like culture trying to continue to stay normal in the context of COVID. Like it just, so, my business is decimated. Live performing is decimated. And frankly, I have no really interest in going into a comedy club right now anyway, because they proved that they just don't give a shit. Like some of these clubs are still like, letting people just sit at tables, and the rationale is, well, we make them wear masks when they walk in. Well, they walk in and they go to the bathroom for like 10 minutes out of their 2-hour stay. The other hour and 50 minutes, they're sitting there and cheering and hooting and hollering and whatever. So it's like, I'm not here to, I don't want to lecture it. I'm just telling people you could know a lot of people where it's just a blip, and then there's people that it's really bad. And then there's people it just doesn't go away. Like in my thing, it just doesn't go away. And I don't want to deal with this. And I don't want to be talking to you in 3 months and going, oh yeah, my right foot just swelled up and we don't know, like, you know what I mean? Like, I just want to be done with this, because it also is mentally and emotionally exhausting, because you've got to deal with it. You've got to go see this doctor. You got to go make the appointment.
You're constantly in pain doing everyday things.
Yeah, and you're just thinking about it.
Become a burden on the people that are taking care of you.
Yeah,
at least
exactly.
That's how you feel.
Well, I'm already a pain in the ass to live with. You really, I get a stain on a fucking t-shirt and I flip out. I do. I don't know why, but like if I get like a piece of like a tomato sauce on my t-shirt, I got to immediately give it to my wife. She's got to get the stain out. I don't know why.
That's why I wear black all the time.
Exactly.
Seriously, because I'm going to get sauce all over everything. I might as well wear black so it's not as obvious.
We would call it gravy growing up. I don't know if you called it gravy.
No, we never called it gravy. It's a very funny thing how the Italians immigrated to the U.S. and some families call it gravy and some don't.
Yeah.
I never did.
Yeah. My mother would make it, and then we get that Italian bread and rip the piece off and dip it. Oh, my God.
Think about it this way. I noticed this the other day. Think about all of the things, like when you're trying to be COVID compliant, right? Think about all of the things that Italians do. Like you grab a loaf of bread and you rip it apart. Everybody's manhandling everything. Like, we're disgusting people when it comes to sitting down and eating a family meal, because it's a super spreader event, which is why we can't get together for the holidays.
Exactly.
You're like smearing butter with your finger. You're wiping somebody's chin.
You want oil and vinegar on your salad or COVID? Just give me some COVID. You don't know what you're talking about. Like, yeah, exactly. It's so true.
So because you're seeing one of the foremost COVID experts, this is a question that I have. If you get it and you're still dealing with it, have they determined 100% that once you get it, you can never get it again? And then because of that, do you need to get vaccinated even though you're still literally battling it? How does that work?
Yeah, well, they don't know that I can't get it again. It's about the antibodies, but they are finding some people's after a while the antibodies go away. So I think that I'm walking around assuming I can get it again. I'm not getting this a second time. I am not fucking with this thing. So they don't know. They don't know anything. I'm not joking. Basically, I've been seeing doctors over the last 4, 5, 6 months, and I've seen close to a dozen, and literally the answers I get is, yes, that sounds like it's COVID related. We don't know why. We don't know how to treat it. They just don't. Not because they're incompetent. They're just so new. Like, they just don't, you know what I mean? Like, so they sit there and they go, the doctor that is treating me, this foremost doctor, she got COVID and she's working, and she's going to say, by the way, you're going to get a whole bunch of tests and they're all going to come back like negative and not show anything. So like the joints were really bothering me. So my primary care physician is like, well, let's do some, work up some blood work. Okay. I got tested twice for Lyme because it sounded like Lyme disease, right? Which is joints and this, and nothing. All my blood. This is the only time in your life you're like, please, I hope I have blood cancer. Like, fucking, like, you try to find something.
Well, just you want to have some kind of resolution,
something
so that
to
you
point
can start,
to,
right.
and then you can start a regimen. And it's nothing. My stress test crushed it. Like, you got to stand and walk on a treadmill and this and that. And by the way, I thought it was really macho, like because I run and stuff, like, so you're going to walk on this treadmill and then we're going to do like 7 stages and then we'll slightly incline. I'm thinking to myself, yeah, this is for pussies. Like by the 3rd stage, I was like, water. Like, but no, in all seriousness, like everything has come back totally fine. Totally fine. So that's
So
the
are
thing.
they suggesting that you get the vaccine?
I haven't had any conversation with anybody about it, but I'm getting it. I mean, I don't think there's any downside to getting it. But I'll ask my doctor. But yeah, I'm going to get it. But I don't get it ahead of the line because I had it or anything like that. And I don't know if I can get it again, this COVID thing. And I'm assuming I can because, you know, I mean, I'm going to have to take a nap in the middle of the day today, and I'm not doing a lot. Like, I shouldn't do that. You know, I shouldn't have to do that, you know? And so I'm like, worst case scenario is the way I'm looking at it because, and, you know, and trust me, like, and you don't want me sick. Like, even my dog looks at me. Like, initially it was like, the dog was like, this is why is he's here a lot? And then the second stage is like, oh my God, I'm playing with him all. By the 3rd stage, she's like, you are a fucking asshole. Can you get out of the house, please? You are the biggest.
I think the only people that are happy about what's happened this year are our animals.
Oh yeah.
Because they're like, my pug Wednesday, she's so happy that I'm home. Heaven forbid I go to the supermarket or like to the post office. I come back and she looks at me like, where the fuck did you go? When I actually have to leave the house on a regular basis, she's going to be pissed.
She looks at you like, you left me for an hour. What is it? Yeah, I know.
Who do you think you are, human? You're supposed to just be here with me on your lap, petting my head the entire time.
Exactly.
That's life now. That's what's normal.
Exactly. By the way, why did you name her Wednesday?
Because of Addams Family. That's the girl on the Addams
Oh,
Family.
right. Oh, my God.
And she's a little black pug, but she has this little white spot on her chin and a little white spot on her chest. And Wednesday from the Addams Family always wore all black, but she always had that little white collar.
Oh, right.
And so, I mean, you know me, I'm weird.
Yeah.
And I love naming animals after like references from our childhood.
Oh, that's
like
cool.
I had a dog named Gizmo because of the Gremlins.
Oh, yeah.
I had a dog named Yodi, who was the female equivalent of Yoda, because that's how she kind of had that face. So like, I love having dog names that are references to these
things. Yeah, I did that to my childhood, but I had a fish named You'll Never Amount to Anything. And sorry, I just threw that out there.
But you got to do comedy somehow.
You got to get it out there. You got to get it out there.
You can use your new material and try it on me. And if I laugh,
No, it wasn't even material. I just sort of came to me in the moment. That's what you do to me. You make me act like an idiot.
I talked to Lenny Clark a couple of weeks ago on the
Yeah.
podcast.
I love Lenny.
And, one of the things when he and I were talking is whenever I talk to a comedian, it's always a badge of honor for me if I can make a comic laugh.
Oh, you're great. Are you kidding? You'd be a great comic.
Because that's what you guys do. And so, like, I said a couple things in the podcast interview that made Lenny, like, belly laugh. And I was like, why do I take more pride in making a comedian laugh than I do in making anybody else laugh?
Yeah,
I guess it makes me feel funnier.
Well, but
you're
just so genuine. And you're like, I mean, like, we're like brother and sister the way we get amped up and animated. And that's where the best funny comes from, because it's not thought out ahead of time. Like, I think I just said was just me being stupid. I didn't write that an hour ago and say I'm going to say this, but like, I just think that that's why you're so funny, because you're so passionate and you're so real. And I think that's when people say to me, is it hard to be funny? I go, no. I said, everybody's funny. And they go, really? I go, pick the most quiet, boring person in your office. But when that person is around has a comfort level with the people that they're really close to, their guard is down, they're funny. They're funny. Everybody's funny. It's just, I guess, performers like us, we're comfortable doing it in front of strangers and whatever. But like, oh God, but you're always so funny. Like, talking to you, I never feel like I'm doing a show. I just feel like I'm hanging out,
that's what we are doing.
Yeah, which is great. Thank God I can swear, because otherwise we'd be getting
That's
bleeped.
the one thing, because I'm not on the radio anymore, that has been the biggest adjustment for me, is that I was trained muscle memory for over 20 years.
Right.
That when someone dropped an F-bomb, that I had to lunge forward to the button that would dump it out.
Right.
And for me, it was always, and I used to do this with my guests when they would come in the studio, people were way more aware that they were on the air if they wore the headphones. So the headphones were like this physical reminder that you couldn't swear.
Yeah.
So it's been so hard for me to wear headphones here in MCHQ and still be able to say fuck.
Yeah.
Because I haven't been able to say fuck in front of a microphone for over 20 years.
Yeah. By the way, you don't age. You look amazing. You look amazing. You really don't.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I don't even have any makeup on. I was like, fuck it, it's just Paul. I'm not putting lipstick on.
Well, I did throw up in my mouth a little bit when I saw you had no makeup, but
I know.
No, you
but
don't.
My nails are still okay.
Yeah, your nails look. No, you look great. Are you kidding?
I can't let the wheels fall off the wagon because of a global pandemic.
How are you spending your time? You know, it's like the little things in life. Like now, I've been locked in with COVID. So, like, what is your? I mean, when you're not working, but like, how are you passing the time? Are you reading a lot? Are you watching? Like, I get bored. Like, what are you doing to get through it?
I joked at the very beginning of all of this, you know, when COVID really, really hit, that I either picked the best time in the world to get laid off or the worst time in the world to get laid off. So it's a tennis match with me. Sometimes it's like, oh my God, this is the worst time because my layoff, because AAF got sold, does not fit into the time frame of when people got laid off. It's not COVID related, which means I don't qualify for a lot of the COVID benefits that come out in these stimuluses because I got laid off in February.
Just before it all kicked in.
Just before it all kicked in.
Right.
So on one hand, it's the worst time for me to be laid off and looking for a new job, right? But on the other hand, it has given me an opportunity for better or worse. I had to start all over and I had to start a company. So just to answer your question, since early March, when we realized that this was going to be really bad, I registered my company. I built MCHQ, so I have a fully functioning studio in my house. I started a video channel. I started my YouTube channel and started a video series called Cocktails in the War Room. And I go live on Facebook every Tuesday night at 8:30. I started doing it every night at 8:30 back on March 14th. I did 81 shows in a row every night for 81 nights. Then I transitioned the show to be a weekly show. So I started a video show. I launched a podcast. I had to design all new logos. I had to design a whole line of merchandise, which is now for sale on my brand new website, mistresscarrie.com. I launched the podcast and have been setting up interviews and doing this weekly podcast with episodes coming out every Wednesday. Then in October, I expanded the podcast. So Monday through Friday, you get a sit rep, which is all of your rock news, music headlines, and industry info in less than 5 minutes as a mini podcast. So you can be at the drive-thru at Dunk's and in 5 minutes get caught up on what all the bands are doing, what's going on with music, what's going on with movies, television, all of that. But it's in and out in 5 minutes. And so now I'm starting to look forward into the new year and hopefully at some point by the end of 2021, concerts being back out, to be able to go out and host events and public appearances and be able to go to concerts and sit down and be able to videotape my interviews so that I can transition the podcast from being just audio to I'm hoping to be able to incorporate video next year. I literally have done nothing but work except I got married at the end of August.
Oh, right. That's awesome.
So
that's awesome.
So that was like one of the few bright spots in my life. And we got married outside. We got engaged and got married 9 days later because we were just like, fuck it, why wait?
Yeah.
And I was really, really concerned about my wedding being like a super spreader event, right? So we got married outside and we told everybody that it was going to be a socially distant wedding, and people brought lawn chairs and their own beer coolers and picnic blankets, and all of our family and friends that were really, really worried that are immunocompromised, we blocked off parking spots in front of the house, and they watched the wedding from their cars.
Oh, that's amazing.
And we just did it. It was weird, like, having wedding photos without having a lot of people, like, in a group. And we did take, like, we would take pictures and go, okay, we're going to get together in a group. Everybody hold your breath. Take the picture and then scatter. And I mean, we bought like 4 gallons of hand sanitizer. And people were wearing masks, and we were able to have a wedding. We ordered all the food to be food that wasn't going to be shareable. Everything was individual portion sizes. Everything was spread out. Like, but we wanted to get married, and it was the only way that we could really figure out how to do it. And luckily for us, the weather cooperated at the very last minute. And we were able to have a wedding and get the wedding photos that we wanted and whatever. And nobody got sick, which was great.
That's awesome. So
that was like one of the only bright spots, other than, you remember the Christopher Reeve Superman movie, the original Superman movie from our childhood? Remember when Christopher Reeve slowed the world down by going out into space and flying around the planet the other way to get the rotation to slow down?
Yeah.
I look at COVID doing that. And so it's my job, because I got handed this unexpected challenge of being unemployed for the first time in my adult life, to spend this time while the world is slowed down, flying 3 times as fast so that I can catch up. So I've done nothing but work.
That's great. What is the Facebook Live thing you do on Tuesday nights?
Yeah, I call it Cocktails in the War Room.
And what is the concept? What do you do?
So the War Room is a legitimate room in my house that I've called the War Room for 10 years. It's where I keep all of my artifacts from all the military stuff I've done, all of my family's military history. It's got a wood stove and a bar in there. So we always called that room the War Room. And the radio station went off the air on February 21st. And I, was posting online, and I registered my company the first week of March. And then somebody that I used to work with was like, you know what, you should go on Facebook Live or Instagram Live or whatever and just kind of let people know how you're doing, because, people that listen to your show for all those years, they're going to want to know how you're doing, if you're okay, whatever. So I put up on social media, hey, join me tonight at 8:30 live on Facebook for a cocktail in my War Room. I poured myself a drink. I went in the War Room, and I went live for like 17 minutes on Facebook. And 11,000 people showed up. And I went, what the fuck? So people were like, this was so cool. I had something to look forward to because the lockdowns had begun. This was March 14th.
What were you talking about? Just your day?
Just whatever. I just want to let you guys know how I'm doing. How are you guys doing? The world is getting kind of crazy. At that point on March 14th, St. Patrick's Day had been canceled in Boston. Rumors were that Tom Brady was leaving. They were wondering whether or not the marathon was going to happen. Like, there was a ton of stuff going on locally, but also it was like, how are you guys dealing with AAF not being around? How are you guys affected by this? Is your job letting you come to work? Like, it became, the people that come in the War Room every week call themselves the family now, because we've become an online support group. And we get together now every week. I bring guests in. You got to come in the War Room. I can bring you in via Skype.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And we can have a drink together, and we can hang out. It's live and interactive, so they can comment and talk about stuff. In May, I designed Cocktails in the War Room t-shirts, and we were able to sell them out of my dining room, and we raised over $5,600 to a charity that is packing food boxes for veterans that are in need of food assistance and that are immunocompromised. So we turned it into a fundraiser. And every week we just kind of get together and we talk about what's going on. And so, this coming week, the Tuesday night before this episode of the podcast goes live, which is the last episode of the year, by the way, your episode 30, the last episode of 2020, I'll go in the War Room and be like, hey, this week on the podcast, it's Paul Mecurio, and I'll talk about how you and I have been friends for so long and talk about all that stuff. And then at midnight that night, the podcast episode goes live. I've got companies that offer discount codes for people that come in the War Room, that if they use, Mistress Carrie codes, they can get discounts off of stuff. And I bring guests in, and we just talk about music and bands and how we're all coping with stuff.
Just whatever's going on and whatever's
you feel like
going on. And how long do you do it for? Like a half hour?
Sometimes it's 45 minutes. Sometimes it's an hour and a half.
So you do that Tuesday night, and then a few hours later, the
podcast goes live.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's awesome.
And so all of the episodes now, there have been 109 War Room episodes.
Mm-hmm.
They're all up on my YouTube channel now, and they're all archived now on mistresscarrie.com.
Oh, because you can save them after you do them?
Yeah.
Right.
So the videos, you can go back and watch them after the fact if you don't have Facebook, but you want to watch, like a few weeks ago, I interviewed the master distiller of Metallica's whiskey, blackened whiskey.
Mm.
And this whiskey, when they get it in the oak barrels, they blast these barrels with low frequency Metallica music. And they've scientifically proven that it changes the taste of the whiskey because it aggravates the wood in the barrels and it puts more wood particulates into the whiskey. And they've shown that it changes the flavor of the whiskey. And so every batch, a different member of Metallica picks the playlist of the songs that are going to get blasted into this whiskey. So we had this amazing conversation about whiskey and tasting it and how sound waves affect it. And we're sitting there on Skype hanging out together and people can ask questions.
Awesome.
And it's really fun.
And how did you pick Tuesday night at that time? Like, is there something special about that time?
Well, I started the War Room at 8:30. Like that first night, I was like, all right, at 8:30, the kids should be in bed by then. And we can kind of sit down with an end of the day drink.
Right.
And then when I decided to take it from a nightly show to a weekly show, I was like, all right, well, I don't want to do it on the weekends.
Mm-hmm.
And, selfishly, I'm like, I don't want to compete with Monday Night Football.
Yeah, that's smart.
And so it was like Tuesday night seemed like one of those nights where everybody was kind of settled into their work week because a lot of people that have listened to my show are essential workers. So all of the medical personnel, the first responders, all of those kind of people, like they're still working and sometimes working harder than they ever did before.
Yeah.
And so it was like Tuesday night, you're going to be home laying low. It's not a big party night. It's not Thursday. In Boston, Thursday's always been that big party night. Not that we have any fucking place to go party.
Right.
But I was like, you know what? Tuesday night just seems like a good night to get together, have a drink and decompress and kind of talk about what's going on. And so now, somewhere between like 3,000 and 5,000 people join me in the War Room.
That's awesome. I got to check it out. That's awesome.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I got this software that allows me to put graphics and titles on the screens. And so it's basically like I'm running a television show by myself in the War Room.
And then you decided to do Facebook Live instead of like Instagram Live. Is there a reason?
I just decided Facebook, I thought, was the easiest, and it at the time had the most people on my page.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, I'll do Facebook. And then people were like, well, I don't have Facebook. So that's why I was like, all right, well, I'll put the shows all up after the fact on YouTube. And then I put them all up on my website. And what's really funny is you go back and watch the first episode, and it's literally me talking into my phone.
Yeah.
I did like 39 episodes just talking into my iPhone.
Yeah.
Then I got super highly technical, and I bought a tripod with a ring light so I could be two-handed in Italian and talk with my gestures. Then I had the ring light for like 40-something episodes, and then when I transitioned the show from being nightly to weekly, I got this software, and now it makes the show look like a television show. I can put logos and graphics and sponsors on it, and
that's awesome.
I can put your Instagram handles and your websites on there and pictures and so,
That's
and
great.
my co-host is my dog. So my dog she has a pug cam, so she has her own camera because nobody else is here to be able to go on the show with me most of the time.
That's great.
And so I can put, Wednesday on the camera and people can watch Wednesday. And then people started sending me stuff like quarantine care packages of like my favorite snacks and sending Wednesday dog toys. And so it became a part of the show where every week I open up the packages that people have sent me. And now that the website's up and running and my merchandise is up and running, I'm spending a lot of time mailing out orders. I have T-shirts, sweatshirts, pint glasses, koozies, hoodies, stuff to rock your office out. Like, oh, look, I have mouse pads.
Nice.
And pens and kind of all this stuff. And I'm doing it all myself, like locked in the house. So when you're asking me, like, what do you do with your time? It's like, all I do is work, basically.
That's amazing. I just spend my time tracking packages on Amazon.
Yeah,
Just
right.
like,
I mean,
you
have you bought some weird shit on Amazon?
I mean, like screws. I bought screws and certain screws I needed to fix something, and I literally spent like 3 days. Are the screws here yet? And I'm like, I gotta fucking get a life. Like this is like, like I just been hoses like for the yard, and then I put in some linoleum in my bedroom, so I ripped up the old it's like all these projects I'm doing. It's crazy.
Yeah, and you're doing it while battling. Like, I'm sure you can work on a project for like an hour.
Yeah,
right?
that's the
thing.
thing.
And then you got to take a nap.
And then they said, you got to stop doing it. So I kind of stopped because they said, you got to really let your body fight this thing, and all that extra energy that you're putting into those things, you got to. So I just I had to pull back, and, we just had the snowstorm. So this is a perfect reason to have my wife shovel. I'm like, hey, I fucking got COVID.
I got COVID, babe.
I can't go out there. So that's the thing. They said the body's tired all the time because it's fighting this thing, and it needs that energy. It's got to it's in dysregulation. The body's got to re-regulate. So it's crazy.
One of the things that's been really good has been that it's been a huge help for podcasting.
Yeah.
And you've had a podcast for a long time now, the Paul Mecurio podcast. And even though you've been kind of dealing with all of this stuff, you've still managed to have some really cool conversations with some awesome people. Talk about some of the people that you've been able to interview while you've been kind of locked away.
Well, I just had Peter Frampton on to talk about his career. He's got a book, and that was really, I was a huge fan of his, and I wanted to hear, he's really honest and frank about
his manager fucked him, right? And stole millions of dollars.
He was like an 17, 18-year-old kid, and he blew up. He was in Humble Pie, and then he got, he just blew up, and he had that amazing album, Frampton Comes Alive, which took him 6 years to write. And he just didn't know where the money was going. And the next thing he turned around and there was no money. It was the classic story. And,
and he's doing drugs.
Yeah.
It's the 70s, and everybody was doing drugs.
Right. And he also kind of went down the road of, Teen Idol kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because he was told that would, keep, and he looks back and wishes that he had just been more about the music. And, he had a lot of pressure to write a follow-up album, and he just didn't have the life experience in the material yet. So the next album was so-so. David Bowie they went to art school together as kids, and he talks about Bowie kind of helping him get out of, sort of this dead end he put himself in, which was, Bowie says, you got to go back to being a musician, who you are. And then he went out and started playing with Bowie, and that helped him kind of get back to his roots. But he was very honest about a lot of things, and that's what I really liked about him. There wasn't a bullshit conversation where the guy was just sort of glossing over stuff.
Did he talk about the movie he made with the Bee Gees? And I bring it up because I know he talks about it in the book, that the manager got him to do that as a money play kind of thing. But growing up for me, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which was Peter Frampton and the Bee Gees, and that's why Aerosmith recorded Come Together, because they made an appearance. George Burns. It's one of my favorite childhood movies.
Right.
And Peter Frampton kind of looks at it as this embarrassing thing that he did, but I love that movie.
Yeah, he puts it in that category of just bad decisions that he was making or was being forced to make. And, a young, impressionable kid. And, and you see it too. If you go back, we pull some pictures up to promote the thing, and you see some pictures of him, and he's he looks like David Cassidy. He's got his shirt unbuttoned down to his belly button, and he's got this big blonde locks of hair, and he's totally
tight satin pants
on. Going for, which was my look, and she totally took it. And you could totally see that he's going for that thing, but you can't. Can you imagine being that young? And he goes, it was just crazy. We were traveling around and have throngs of people, then you start to believe the hype and everything else. At that young age, that would be insane to try to manage that. So he talked about it in that context of it was just and he regrets that. He felt like he shortchanged himself, and he didn't consider himself a one-hit wonder, but it came off that way because of that album. But obviously just a phenomenal musician and a really good songwriter. He was by the time that thing had topped the charts and he was you know, moving on to the next thing. What, he was all of maybe 20, 21, and then they're like, okay, write another album. And it's like, you know, all the best stuff comes from living life. You know, you haven't really lived when you've written. You basically, you know, 6 years of your life was already written about. Like, what are you going to write about? You know, and so it was just really, really cool. And then I just posted this guy as a professor at Emory University and we talk about death and dying, and it sounds maudlin and whatever, but like he has this whole, he talks about the history of death and how we look at death and how different societies throughout history have looked at death. So it's like a very different kind of, a totally other kind of.
Well, that's what I love about your podcast is that you talk to a lot of different people. So, you know, one week you're talking to the real Erin Brockovich.
Yeah, she was great.
And then the next week you're talking to Al Roker. And then you talk to Peter Frampton. Like, that's the beauty of having a podcast is that.
Oh, yeah, I just had on.
You can talk to all of these different people.
Yeah, I had David Fry. He's the co-host of the National Dog Show in the Westminster Kennel. That guy who does it with. He's the guy that does those shows of play-by-play for the dogs. And as a dog lover, you would love it. And my wife and I are big dog lovers, and we love to watch that. So we talked about, like, you know, breeding and the dogs and the whole competition.
Did you talk about the nudicles?
No.
Because they have, like, their little dog-sized replacement testicles. So if they fix a dog and castrate it or, you know, whatever, that they put fake nuts in it. So there's a company that invented, and there are doctors that went to school to learn how to be veterinarians that are making money putting prosthetic balls on dogs. Show dogs. Like, I understand if you're a guy, right? If you're Lance Armstrong and you get testicular cancer and you don't just want to have one nut, or you don't want to have no nuts, that you can go in and get these replacement nuts, and then they're like breast implants. It's like, does this feel like a gummy bear? Does this, like, what does this feel like? Like, I understand psychologically why a guy would want to have fake balls to make you feel normal.
Right.
But the fact that we're putting that technology to use in 2020 with a pandemic to put fake balls on dogs.
It's like, well, you know, we didn't talk about it, but I'm actually thinking, given the way this COVID thing is going for me, I might need them myself, you know?
You're in the office, like, do you go for bigger?
Oh, you definitely go for bigger.
Do you, though? I mean, as a woman, like...
No, it's not a big...
They got to be proportional. You can't just have, you know, all wheels and no cannon.
Well, that's been the story of my life. All wheels and no cannon. That is awesome. I've never heard that phrase before.
I stole that from an army buddy of mine.
It's okay. It's yours.
I gotta give him the credit.
I give it to you. Oh, I also had the guy from The Walking Dead on, Coleman Domingo, Fear the Walking Dead, and he was really cool.
You talked to Michael Cohen.
Yes. Yeah. He's an angry guy. Yeah. He talking about Trump. Boy, he's got a lot of issues. But I was a little hesitant to talk to him because I didn't want it to, he was very honest, and I really got the sense that he was really trying to, like, make right things that have happened. And I
always question people's motives like that, because it's like, you were totally fine sucking off the teat of that person when it benefited you.
Yeah.
Why didn't you have that moral compass then? Like, I understand they're trying to make contrition after the fact, you know, that something happens and you see the light and now you want to apologize and make amends and whatever. But the argument could always be made, and it's always made by the president, that when people wrong him, that, you know, he turns around and is like, you're the bad guy, or, oh, it was fine for you to be with a bunch of these terrible people until it doesn't serve you anymore. And it's a really hard place to be in, because it's like, if you're an immoral, you know, like the person that apologizes right before they get the needle on death row. It's like, are you really sorry?
Right, exactly. I think
trying to get clemency.
Yeah, I mean, I give him credit only because he didn't make excuses. You know, he basically was like, as I said to him, I said, you know, you knew you were doing really shitty, wrong things. You're not a dumb guy. I go, why? And he took a long pause, and he goes, because it's like you're in a cult. He goes, I can't explain it. He goes, but you're in this cult, and there's this guy, and he just creates this vibe. So he didn't make an excuse or point fingers. He just was like, I just couldn't get myself to, I knew, but I couldn't get myself to not do it. So he was like very honest. He's definitely angry.
Do you think the president's going to pardon him?
No, not him. No, because he's come out and just, beat the shit out of Trump. No way he would pardon him. The only people he's going to pardon are people that are in his inner circle that stayed loyal and kept his mouth shut. But then,
then you talk to somebody that I have been such a fan of. You've talked to a couple people that I'm just like, holy fucking shit. You talked to Harry Shearer, which as a Spinal Tap fan, Derek Smalls, and then obviously all the voices for The Simpsons.
Yeah.
I mean, what an amazing, what was that like?
He's very much like talking to an artist. Like he, and, sort of just even approaching the voices, like, they're not just him, just, hey, I'm going to physically do this voice. It's like, I'm going to bring my personality into it. And there's thought that goes into it. And very quiet, like not a very unassuming guy in a lot of ways, but very much in his head.
Go back what you were saying, like take the quietest person in your office and they're funny when you make them comfortable.
Yeah. And he was totally like, you could just in hearing him, you could see the wheels spinning. Like you could see like a very, very smart guy. Like I remember thinking like this guy could have easily been a professor or whatever, like, just like a true artist. And like, really thoughtful in his answers, like doesn't just sort of like thinks about it. You could tell him he's thinking about his answer before he gives it to you. He's not just kind of jumping in, and he was like, just liked the ability to kind of talk about, just the art of it all, who I really liked was Kevin Costner, not because he was Kevin Costner, but we talked about music and how important music is. He's promoting Yellowstone and how he, he's in a band and his band is really good. And like, they've been in this band, the band tours with his shooting schedule, like goes to on shoots, like goes to locations.
Kevin Bacon does that too. With the Bacon brothers. And there are certain people that
so it was a really interesting conversation with Costner too. Like really, I felt like I was talking to an artist and not just a movie star. You know what I mean? So like, I don't like
he has a reputation in some circles as being difficult. How was he to deal with and talk to?
Oh, he was fine because the same thing with Billy Bob Thornton, because the thing is, I don't know if you mean he's difficult in conversations of interviews, but I could see that happening if as the interviewer you have one agenda and it doesn't match your guest's agenda, right? So like
that makes sense.
Like Billy Bob wanted to come on and talk about his band and music, and so
and if you bring up Angelina Jolie,
or like so if you ostensibly do like the question about his music and then try to shoehorn it into a conversation about acting or what was it like to fuck Angelina, you lose him, and I don't care from my perspective, as long as I'm the genesis of the art is this, whether it's acting in the case of Costner and Billy Bob Thornton or music in the case of them, the genesis, which is your soul of the creative thing that you're doing, is the same. So I don't care if we're talking about music or acting. I'm more interested in the process and how they come up with what they do. And so both of them, Billy Bob, I don't want to be whatever, but he goes, this is one of the best interviews anybody did with me because like I get asked the stupidest questions. He goes, last week I actually got asked what kind of omelet I think Bruce Springsteen likes. He actually said, so, and you're a great interview because you never interview people. You talk to them and you obviously do your research. And so you're great. And I think they just appreciate that. So for me, Costner was, we talked about acting, but in the context of music and why the music's important, how he uses music to help his acting, how writing songs for Yellowstone helped inform his character and how he found his character through writing these songs. And like, I am just not interested. There are enough interviews out there about someone talking about like what it's like to be on a movie set and what it's like to kiss so-and-so and what it was like to do that scene with such and such. Like there's enough of that. Like when you get these people, they're artists at the highest level. That's to me like what you should tap into. And I think especially when they're on these press junkets, they appreciate like kind of getting questions that like are more meaty, and not just like the bullshit.
Well, that's one of the things that I've noticed about launching the Mistress Carrie podcast over the interviews that I would have done on the radio is that there was always the pressure when you're doing a radio interview. You only get a certain amount of time. And the record company or the band manager, whoever sets up the interview with you, they want you to make sure that you talk about the concert. They want to make sure you're talking about how to get tickets, the album, because that's tied to the direct revenue stream.
Right.
And especially because 2020 has been so weird and the bands aren't on tour, and a lot of bands are choosing not to release records because some bands are releasing them, but others aren't because they can't tour, which is how they make their money.
Right.
So for me, because there's no time limit, I can talk about whatever I want for as long as I want on the podcast now. And because there's no tour to talk about, it's allowed me to be able to have these more human conversations about sobriety and about there's a couple of trends that have really come out in the podcast, especially when I talk to musicians. Number one, there is an extraordinary amount of rock stars that come from families where their dads were a veteran. Which is really weird that I never really noticed that before.
Right.
It's long been my theory that rock stars are predestined to have beautiful daughters, and we call it rock star revenge because rock stars hook up with hot chicks, and then the punishment for being a rock star and being, that way is that you're going to get a beautiful daughter that then forces you to look at the world through a woman's eyes.
Oh, that's funny.
And then one of the other trends that has come out for a long time, and it goes back to what you're talking about, and Kevin Costner is a perfect example. It always seems to be that musicians want to be actors, right?
Yeah.
Actors want to be athletes. Athletes want to be musicians. And it's those three things. And Kevin Costner is all three.
Yeah.
Because he's such a baseball guy and such a sports guy, yet he's also a musician and he's also an actor. And he's that guy that does all three in this really strange way.
Yeah, and he makes them all work and relate. Yeah, I mean, it's great. I mean, the podcast has been great because you get to talk to people you normally wouldn't get to talk to. By the way, I don't mean to be whatever. I gotta do a call at 2, so I'm gonna have to wrap this up.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
But I just think that I'm kind of particular about who I have on because I don't want to waste the opportunity, to just that's why I'll have some more obscure kind of people. I had the woman that could survive the Ted Bundy attack. It's crazy. Who can I talk to that I wouldn't necessarily get a chance to talk to about something that I care about,
Well, that's what's great about podcasts too, is that because it's this on-demand thing, someone can look through the list on the Paul Mecurio podcast and go, that's really interesting. That's really interesting. Well, I don't know if that one's for me, but this is real. And they can make that choice about, I want to listen to this one and I want to listen to this one.
Right.
But it's coming through your filter as an interesting person that looks at the world in a certain way.
Yeah, I'm trying.
And I try to do the same thing too.
To
give people that perspective on things.
You do. And you're really smart and you tie things together really well too. And you make it entertaining and you're fun. Like, you have the complete package, I think, as someone who hosts a show, because I could listen to you talk to a dog catcher, you know what I mean? Like, it's just because you'll make it interesting and fun. And I always feel like the questions you come up with are not something, I always feel every question you ask is like you really care about the person and the question you're asking. And it's not just, all right, I came up with this list of 5 questions. So let me get through it, And
that was always people would always say in the music business or in radio, this is business, it's not personal. And my argument to that was always, well, it might not be personal for the people behind the scenes, right? The sales people, the accounting people, but it is personal for the person behind the microphone because we're part of the product and the ratings are direct. It's a popularity contest. So you're it's whether or not the person listening likes you or not. If that's not personal, it's the same thing with what you do with stand-up comedy or, with podcasting. It's like people are making the decision to give you their hard-earned money and their time to go and see you perform or to listen to your podcast. If that's not personal, I don't know what is.
Yeah, exactly.
It is personal, and I understand that business decisions need to be made and all of that, but at the end of the day, we're in the person business.
Yeah, and the people listening you got to give a lot of props to your listeners and respect them, and they know if it's if it's bullshit. They can read through very quickly. They're very perceptive. So like if it's coming off like it's business, if that's what you believe as the broadcaster or the people managing the broadcast, that's going to come through the people at home, and they're just going to, you're not going to have a disconnect. That's why you're so great, because it doesn't come off like business. It comes off like you really care.
Well, before I let you go,
Yes.
I just want to make sure that we put the plug in. Obviously, Colbert has figured out a way to keep the show going.
Yeah, we're looking forward to having an audience again, so we can get in front of an audience and do that. And
how hard has that been to write for a show that you normally is?
Well, I mean, the writers are doing a great job. I mean, it's like I'm not really doing much of the writing right now, but I basically, I think that the writing is still, like, we had to do that on the Daily Show. There were times when we didn't have an audience because of something going on. You're still writing and pulling from the facts of the world. It's just hard not getting I think, it's weird as a performer to not get that audience reaction. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing.
I tell the bands with all the live stream concerts they're doing, and it's kind of the same way with you. You are now learning what it's like to be a radio DJ. Because all you're doing is talking out, but you're not getting anything back, which is what it's like to be on the radio. So for me, it's not that foreign of a concept. But when you're used to having an audience that's live that will laugh at your jokes or clap at the end of a song, and that's not there, it's like, huh? And with me, if I told a joke on the air, I never got the laugh on the other end. So
that's true.
I don't notice it in the same way as being something that's missing that you guys do. So it's interesting the way you guys have been able to ebb and flow with the challenges.
It's definitely different, and I'm doing stuff on my YouTube channel, and I've been posting different videos, and I did a little video series called Our Long National Nightmare, and same thing, like, you are used to being a performer and hearing that reaction. And so, but it's been fun to do the videos and sort of put, production value in them and stuff like that. And basically have another medium, in addition to live performing, which I can't do much of now. And, obviously doing the podcast. And I feel like, it's just been a nice way. And I think doing all sorts of different types of performing makes all the other performing better. Like, I think it all relates, so it's good. Yeah.
I know I need to let you go, and it's either your phone ringing or the batteries are low in your butt plug, one of the two. So
why, are you hearing something?
Something's going.
Oh, wait. Sorry. Hang on.
So somebody's trying to get a hold of you, or you need to change the batteries. One of the two.
No, I'm just putting it on. I just put it on airplane. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
But
it's the Mistress Carrie podcast, Paul. You think I care about background noise? Come on.
I love talking to you. I could talk to you all day.
It was so great to catch up. Thank you for being so candid with all of your struggles with COVID. I thought it was really interesting and really important for people to hear. A different perspective from someone that's going through it in real time.
And again, I'm not trying to lecture anybody. I'm just very adamant about don't do whatever you do, take it seriously. That's all. That's all. I don't care about anything else, but don't because I don't know what's going to happen to me around the corner, and that's not a good place to be, but it is what it is. But well, let's do this again soon.
I would and I'm going to bring you in the war room some night.
I'd love to do that. That would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. All right. Love you.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for having me on. And youtube.com/Paul Mecurio is where they can check out my thing, my stuff I've been posting, by the way.
I'll put all the links in the show notes of the podcast too, so make it easy for people to find you.
Okay. I'll see you. You look great.
There he is, Paul Mecurio. We seem to cram everything from COVID-19 to dogs' testicles and pasta sauce and everything in between into one podcast episode. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss anything, including the situation reports that come out Monday through Friday with all your music and rock headlines and news. And if you don't mind, leaving a 5-star review and a comment helps spread the word on the Mistress Carrie podcast. 98 countries strong and growing. This episode and every other episode of the Mistress Carrie podcast is featured on mistresscarrie.com, along with the online store, the photo galleries, the event calendar, and my blog. And speaking of MistressCarrie.com, this episode sponsored by MistressCarrie.com and also Digital Federal Credit Union, or DCU, that you can find them at dcu.org. If you're looking for Paul Mecurio, you can find all of the links to all of his social media pages in the show notes of this podcast. And also, you can just search for The Paul Mecurio Show anywhere that you listen to podcasts to hear all of his episodes. And if you're looking for me, you can find me every Tuesday night at 8:30 live on my Facebook page for Cocktails in the War Room.